So the message wasn't just being heard in Boston. In white suburban communities all around Boston, liberal white families were starting to ask themselves what they could do. They knew that this problem was wholly unconscionable, and they wanted to figure out what they could do to help those children and families that were fighting so hard for the most basic piece of human dignity. So they were having their meetings in classrooms and boardrooms and living rooms, all of them together trying to figure out what on earth we can do to help.
You know, our schools are segregated too. They're all white, but that's still a kind of segregation.
I see what's happening on TV down in the South, but then I hear that Hicks woman talk and I realize that bigotry is not so far from home.
It doesn't seem right. Those kids are just a few miles away and they have no books, no school supplies. We have so much. Why does it have to be this way?
Couldn't we work together? Pool our resources somehow? Who says we can't enroll a student just because they don't live here?
Those parents were ready. They wanted to be engaged, but they needed a lightning rod, somebody who was going to organize all of their thoughts and all of their desires and put them into a form which they could all move through. And that person came in the form of a man named Leon Trilling. Leon Trilling was a professor at MIT, but he was also the head of the Brookline School Committee. And he knew that he wanted to do something. So he got in touch with the NAACP and Ruth Batson. And he wanted to plan a meeting with them to talk about what they could do together to make a difference. Miss Batson, when she heard from Mr. Trilling initially, was pretty skeptical at first.
When we arrived at the meeting place, I was both surprised and impressed by the group assembled. Dr. Trilling was so friendly and cordial, and Dr. Robert Sperber, the superintendent of the Brookline school system, was so young. He displayed an air of optimism and openness that I had never experienced in Boston. Seated at the table with the school officials were 3 high school students who participated fully in the discussions about the invitation to Roxbury students. This was unheard of in my experience in Boston. I came out of that meeting elated.
That was in December of that year. And over the next few months, the enthusiasm started to spread in communities all around Boston. Those suburban communities proposed, they voted, and they passed resolutions that allowed those black kids to go into those white communities. And after 6 months, the Metropolitan Council for Educational Opportunity was ratified, and it was organized. Yes, indeed, they did move with all deliberate speed.